This is your Thursday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. We have a lot to get to today. A couple of big games Wednesday night. Timberwolves beat the Bucks in Milwaukee 113-108. We will certainly be talking about that. Loons fall 2-1 in Vancouver. They get a late goal but can't pull all the way back. Fall just below the playoff line now. They're in 8th place in the West. Playoff odds not looking nearly as good as they were before that match started. We'll break that down here in a little bit as well. Got some World Series talk as well. Houston squares that at 1. And Glen Perkins will join the show, talk a little bit of Eddie Rosario. He was Eddie Rosario's teammate for 3 years with the Twins. And I'll also get Glen Perkins' memory of the 1991 World Series. Wednesday was the 30th anniversary of Game 7 of that World Series. But first, what did I miss? Got to talk Timberwolves at the jump here. That was quite a game for the Wolves in Milwaukee. Like I said, they won 113-108. Got off to a hot start. Had a 20-point lead in the second quarter that got whittled down to 6 right away, but they kind of regained their footing, got that lead back up again, and won wire to wire. They did not trail in this game. It got tense in a few spots, including the end when the Bucks made a little run, but they had the wherewithal to close this game out. Anthony Edwards with a big driving layup, and near the end of that game to help clinch it. Did a lot of good work down the stretch. Really becoming a leader on this team. It was an important game, from a lot of different standpoints. First and foremost being, getting a win. Second, though, if you remember, Anthony Edwards kind of called out his teammates after that loss to the Pelicans the other day, and for them to come out like this and do what they did, I think was pretty important. Chris Hine, our Timberwolves beat writer, agreed with me, and he sent in a voicemail after the game for this show. Let's listen to that right now.
I think the biggest takeaway from tonight's game was, after Monday, Anthony Edwards' strong comments about needing to share the ball on offense, a competitive practice yesterday. I think the biggest thing is that this could have been a point where you could see this team maybe start to fracture a little bit and grow apart if, they didn't come out with a strong effort here on Wednesday. But the fact that they played the way they did, I think, bodes well for the cohesion of this unit going forward, their ability to face a little adversity, to whether it be in a practice or in game as Milwaukee was making a run, they held their composure. They came back. They played strong defense. Anthony Edwards hit some key buckets when you needed it the most, and that, I think it's a complete win. It's a very good win, one that can give them a lot of momentum going forward here. There's a lot of winnable games on the schedule coming up. So I think this bodes really well. 3-1 start, Denver coming to town on Saturday, and then you have a bunch of home games coming up here. So, for the Timberwolves, the mission is just keep it rolling, keep playing the way that you did on Wednesday night, and you should be just fine.
Now, one thing I thought was interesting from the game, and good insights from Chris, we'll do those voicemail features throughout the year on different beats. Fans, listeners, feel free to jump in too. Just send them to me. I will post them on the show. Don't swear, please. I don't have to use the beep button. I have to work on the beep button enough for Anthony Edwards. I'm not even going to try the Giannis quote he had after the game today. So we're not going to worry about that. But Anthony Edwards, had a good game. He wasn't super efficient in this game, but he had the buckets when he had to have them. Like I said, made that driving layup, made 2 free throws at the end to keep that game a 4-point lead. And he was asked after the game, a couple different things. One, to the effect of, closing out games and being comfortable in those situations. And here's what he had to say about that.
Whoever had the ball was going at the end of the game. I mean, Cat, D'Lo, me, whoever, it didn't really matter. So I had it at the end, and D'Lo was coming. It's like, bro, just gone. I got it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Let me be a closer, too.
Second piece, he was asked about, the stuff that he said after the game the other night against the Pelicans was they were trying to do too much 3-on-5. They got to share the ball more. They got to get more shots for Karl-Anthony Towns. Or I'm sorry, not for Karl-Anthony Towns. They got to get more shots for people other than Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, and D'Angelo Russell. And what I thought was interesting from Wednesday's game is that wasn't really the way the game played out. I thought the ball movement was better. They certainly had more assists, a higher percentage of assists on those shots. I think they made 29 field goals in the game, on a much higher assist percentage in that game than the other night. So just watching the game, the ball movement was better. But at the end of the day, their three stars still ended up taking the vast majority of the shots. Against the Pelicans the other night, 61 out of the 90 shots that the Wolves took were from D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, or Anthony Edwards. Against the Milwaukee Bucks, 62 of the 91 shots they took, almost identical numbers, were by those big three. And here's the thing. Those guys should be taking those shots. They are the star players. I think, if there's a twofold message from Ant the other night was, better ball movement, don't let it break down, don't let it bog down. I think that's good. The other piece of it, get everybody else involved, get them shots. Yeah, to a degree, but I want those three taking most of the shots because those are by far, in a way, the three most talented offensive players in the team. They've got some other guys that can certainly score. Malik Beasley can score. Naz Reid can score. Patrick Beverley can give you some shooting, things like that. But, by and large, those are your three best players on the offensive end by far, and they should be taking the shots. So Ant was asked after the game what he thought about the way the team responded to his message, specifically about kind of the ball movement and getting things going the other way.
Got to get a little better with finding the other guys, but as far as everybody touching the ball, everybody being happy, feeling good, yeah, I was pretty satisfied with it tonight.
I mean, let's face it, a big factor in this game was they made shots, and specifically D'Angelo Russell made shots. He'd been bad to start the year, but 12 for 25 in this game, a high volume, but he had it going, especially early, finished with 29 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, wasn't shying away from the moment. He was a +3 on the night, and, it was, he's going to be kind of that player. As he goes, so might go the Wolves. If he has a good shooting night, they're going to have a good chance to win. If he has a bad shooting night, they're probably not going to win. And they need to have more of those D-Lo nights than the bad D-Lo nights that you saw, especially against the Pelicans the other night. And Chris Finch was asked about that after the game, head coach Chris Finch, and here is what he had to say about D'Angelo Russell and the way that was going for him on Wednesday night.
I mean, it's mostly him. Like, like I told you guys the other day, everybody goes through a rough patch or when you're out of rhythm in this season. And sometimes it happens to be when you start, and he was trying to do everything we asked him to do. And he was probably overthinking it. And, he was determined to come out aggressive, and that's what we wanted him to do. So he really, was electric to start. Gave us that early push and gave us great confidence in that lead, of course.
Now, one thing that can't be overlooked in this game, they made a starting lineup switch. Jared Vanderbilt goes into the game for Josh Okogie, probably part of that being size. Finch addressed that. I'll play that clip in here in just a minute, but, lost a little bit in their good defensive start. I mean, the first 2 games of the year, they were number 1 in the league in defensive rating. They still played reasonable defense against the Pelicans and only gave up 108 to the Bucks the other night, which is a good defensive effort as well. Lost in that was that their defensive rebounding has been awful, and I think part of that is they're undersized up front, right? And when you got Josh Okogie or Jaden McDaniels essentially, playing the 3-4, those guys are not all that big, especially Okogie. Like they're McDaniels is tall, but he just doesn't have the muscle to push guys around. And, Jared Vanderbilt isn't super thick either, but he's a bigger body. He's a longer body. They tried to throw as many big bodies on Giannis as they could, like Finch said. But the defensive rebounding for this team had been atrocious, had been the worst in the league through the first 3 games. Still, statistically, is the worst in the league, but they got a much higher percentage of those rebounds. It had been hovering around 64-65% in their defensive rebounding percentage for the first 3 games. It was 72% last night against the Bucks. That would be about middle of the pack for the full season, 13th over a 1-game span. So it got better when they went to that bigger lineup, and I wonder if they will keep going to that, especially in certain matchups, because I thought Jared Vanderbilt brought a lot to the table. Had a good all-around game. 10 points, 13 rebounds, even had 3 assists, had a steal. Affected the game in a certain way that, not saying Josh Okogie can't affect the game, and he did a lot of good things in those games that he was starting. But Jared Vanderbilt did bring a certain element to that game. And here's Chris Finch on the reason behind that lineup switch.
Well, we were half expecting them to go with Thanasis, and so we thought the matchup would be a little bit more in line. But when we learned that they weren't, we just stayed big. We knew we needed to rebound. We were fine with the matchups as they were, and being able to control this team has to do with being able to put your body in front of Giannis, and we needed as many people and big bodies willing to do that as we could get.
So all in all, just to kind of circle back on it, like Chris Hines said at the start of the show, it was just a big win. It's a good win for them. You could start to see how the season could turn a little bit. I know it's super early and it can always turn back. The season's going to turn 7 different times before it's all over. We're only 4 games into an 82-game season, but you could see this was an important one based on how they played against the Pelicans and what the messaging was after that game and what was deemed to be a pretty tough practice, a pretty aggressive practice after that. This team is showing that they've got some chemistry. They're not afraid to kind of call each other out or hold each other accountable. And that's going to be a big deal going forward. That was a big deal in the Jimmy Butler years, too. That was always a point of contention with him. Can I criticize my teammates? And if they are able to do that, and if the leader of that is a 20-year-old named Anthony Edwards, that is all the better and bodes very well for this team.
I'm Nyla Jean Myers, Senior Assistant Sports Editor at the Star Tribune. Thank you for listening to Strip Sports Daily Delivery. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast and our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
Really happy to be joined today on Daily Delivery by Glen Perkins. We go way back, Glen. I consider you a friend, I guess. Right? We're buds. We've hung out before. I've seen unspeakable acts. No, I'm just kidding. You know where the bodies are buried. But
see me do some things that I'm not entirely proud of. But I would say we are friends, Mike. I think you're definitely more than just a newspaper man to me.
You're definitely more than a former baseball player now to me. You've come to speak to my journalism class at the U of M multiple times. Just an all-around good guy. You're down in Florida right now enjoying a little sunshine, more than we've got here today. But I want to talk to you a little bit about Eddie Rosario, because you guys were teammates for 3 years, beginning part of his career, tail end of yours. And he's just, obviously what he's done in the playoffs kind of speaks for itself, but it's also kind of a continuation of a theme almost of kind of what he did with the Twins, which was in the big moments that seemed to be where he played his best. So maybe just if you can just, what was it like to be his teammate? What do you remember about Eddie Rosario?
Well, I think like what he's done now, I mean, that's what teams are trying to do. Like, you want to get to the playoffs and you want to get hot. Eddie Rosario, when he's hot, is as good of a hitter as anybody that I've ever seen, and when he's not, he's not. But when he gets hot, man, he goes on tears. And it's little things that I've seen him do going the other way. He went the other way last night, late in the game, and drawing walks. He drew a walk late in Game 6 in the NLCS where he just sees the ball. And I told Royce, it looks like a beach ball to him at those times. And then when he's cold, it looks like he's trying to hit a ball. But when he gets hot, he's got that ability. And it also, like, think back to his very first at-bat of his career, the first pitch he ever saw.
Home run.
A home run to left field. And
yeah,
he does. He has a knack for those big moments that it's like extra focus. And I do feel like in moments where you need a guy up there that is going to put together a good at-bat and put a good swing on a ball, he's on the short list for me. And that's, definitely not the case over the course of 162 games. But in moments like that, I love him. He gets locked in, and you put him up there with anybody. He got incredible hands. The bat to ball has always been there. When he gets into trouble, he expands the strike zone. When he stays within himself, I think I read something about his approach and how he's changed a little bit and been working on that with the Braves. And it looks like that's working too. But, man, I love him. It's so fun, when I don't get to watch the Twins be in it, to see guys that I played with that I love being teammates with get to have that success and be on that stage. He deserves it. He's earned it. And there's not very many guys that I like to see having that success and seeing his smile out on the field than Eddie Rosario.
What's it like being the teammate with someone like that who's, goes through hot and cold stretches, is, kind of got the he just looks to me like he approaches every situation like he could be the hero and does not worry about what happens if he fails.
No, not at all. And it's not in a cocky way. Like, he thinks he's going to go up there and get a hit every time. He thinks that he's the best hitter in the game, and that's an approach that you have to have. And any good baseball player is going to have an air of cockiness, is going to have an air of I'm better than you. And if you go up there without that attitude, you have no chance. Whether you're pitching or hitting, you don't have a chance if you don't think that you're going to have success against whoever it is you're facing. And he has that. And I tell you what, he was very successful when I played with him. I mean, he was a really good player for us, really good hitter. But he never, when he was slumping, he never got down. He didn't. He was the same guy. He always prepared. He always approached every at-bat the same. I think he's got a very short memory and doesn't carry things from at-bat to at-bat. He doesn't carry whether he makes a really good throw or he throws it 14 rows into the bleachers on a throw. He's going to try every time thinking that, he can make that throw or that I can hit this guy every at-bat, every play that he has. He approaches the same way. And it's huge for any Major League Baseball player to have a short memory to be able to do that. But he goes up there thinking he's the best hitter in the world. And I love that. I mean, I absolutely, like I said, I love playing with him. I love watching him hit, and I love watching him have success. And he's got that special ability. That's a separator for me.
How would you, obviously you guys were teammates, how would you pitch to a guy like that, especially when he was in a hot zone? Obviously for you it would have been lefty on lefty, so you've got some built-in advantage there, but how do you even approach someone who is that dialed in and is a player like that?
It's really hard to convince yourself, and I think we'll see it the way the Astros approach him as the series goes on. You can't throw him away. He's got such good hands out. He likes to get extension. He likes to throw the barrel at the ball. You have to crowd him, and it's tough to convince yourself to do that. He's so quick, but I can definitely tell in his at-bats right now that he's looking out over the plate. He wants something away. He can go out and get that. He can pull a pitch. We saw him in Game 6 in the ALCS almost hit a home run to right center field on a pitch out and away where he almost gets around it. He gets out and gets around it, so you have to crowd him. And I think his approach right now is that middle away, try to hit it the other way. Maybe he gets out front a little bit and pulls it, but you got to crowd him and elevate on him. I think that breaking balls maybe later in an at-bat you can get him on if you get him out front, but it's that up and in, up above the strike zone, and then in on him. You have to get in on him. You see when he steps up, he's got his hands out. He wants that ball out over the plate where he can get extended. So you got to crowd him and just hope that it's not one where he's looking to turn and burn. And if he's not, that's where they're going to get him out. So I'd be surprised over the next couple of days. I mean, the Astros advanced scouting, the Astros, their pitching plan is as good as it gets. And I think we'll start to see them work him more in, more up in the strike zone, and they're going to have to. I mean, he's middle late in that lineup. He's a good bat and a good fit in that lineup, in that kind of 5, 6, 7 spot where he's been hitting.
Now, the Twins let him go, and intellectually, I think a lot of us understood why. You kind of looked at relative value. You look at, the glut of outfielders they have coming up, promising guys like Kirilloff, Larnach. Like, you looked at it and you're like, okay, that makes sense for the production, for, the raw stats. Doesn't walk a lot. He's prone to these slumps. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling like I wanted to see Eddie Rosario on the Twins. So it's just like this push-pull where I was like uncomfortable with getting rid of him, even if it made a certain amount of intellectual sense. And you are analytically driven to a certain degree too. How do you kind of square how you feel about Eddie Rosario with what some of the numbers sometimes tell you?
Yeah, I totally get you, and I agree. I mean, I think it was the right move on the Twins' part, and anybody can have success in the playoffs. And like I said, over the course of 162 games, he's not going to, if he's hit 400 over the course of those games, there's no concern about him leaving or not. But he isn't that guy. He's outperforming, but guys do that in the playoffs, and that happens, and that's okay. I get it. I get it from the Twins' perspective. I trust Derek and Thad and their vision for this team and the direction that they want to take it. And so you kind of, like I said, I get it, man. I'm just happy that he is having success. I don't feel when he has success that, man, that's a guy that the Twins let go that they shouldn't have. I'm just happy that he's having success. And that's the kind of the view that I take of it. it's okay that he's having success there, and it's okay that he's not having that success with the Twins. I'm just happy for him as a player and as a person.
I like that approach to it, Glenn. Couple more things for you. We were chatting a little bit before the segment started just about, the day we're recording this Wednesday is the 30-year anniversary of, Jack Morris, Game 7 in 91. You were, I believe, 8 years old then. I asked you what you remember from that time, and so I want to ask you again now that we're recording what you remember as an 8-year-old from the 91 World Series.
Yeah, I think what I remember and what I know of it are probably the same kind of thing. It's tough for me to kind of differentiate what has been manufactured and of what I know now, playing for them, knowing the history, all those things, versus what I saw when I was 8 years old. I don't really know, but I do know that I watch the games. I do. But again, you see those things on TV, and you hear about them being a part of the organization, all those things. So I don't really know how to differentiate what I remember and what I don't. But I choose to believe that I remember Puckett hitting the home run. Buck saying we'll see you tomorrow night and those things, and then Jack the next day. I think that I do remember that, and I'm going to go with that.
It's just interesting thought exercise about memory and like what you really remember and what is just you've seen the replay 100 times, and so do you remember the actual thing? Do you remember the replay? Do you have a memory of the memory? What is that? Where do we live in that space? I thought that was an interesting answer you had originally, so I appreciate you expanding that. So, last thought for you, like what have you been up to? We've seen you on Twins broadcasts. Like, how you doing?
I'm really good. I'm down playing golf in Florida right now. Took the opportunity to get out of town a little bit and enjoying that. Outside of that, like, I wish that we were still doing baseball. I wish we got to watch the Twins play, but we don't. There's always next year, so hopefully things are heading in the right direction. I think they're trending in the right direction for the team. So I'm looking forward to next season, even though this season just ended. And outside of that, being a dad, I got a kid in high school, so there's that. And just trying to navigate our way and stay healthy and safe through hopefully what is the downswing of COVID.
I can't believe you have a high schooler now. That's time is flying. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy to me. Like those kids were like 10 and 8 the last I feel like I really remember.
Yeah, I'm not that old, but I feel like I'm a high schooler and I have a high schooler.
High schooler at heart.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, it's been too long. Let's get together soon. Appreciate you hopping on the podcast and enjoy the rest of Florida. All right.
All right, Mike.
Great stuff from Perk. Talked a lot about Eddie Rosario, of course. We talked before Game 2 of the World Series. Rosario held without a hit. Maybe some of those adjustments from Houston that he was saying could be happening were part of that game plan. Houston wins that game, squares the series 1-1. We'll see if Eddie Rosario can get it back going when the series resumes in Atlanta for Game 3 over the weekend. Let's shift to soccer. The Loons fall 2-1 to Vancouver on Wednesday night in Vancouver. Tough loss for Minnesota United. Drops them into 8th place in the West. There's only 2 matches left. Only 7 teams make the playoffs. You do the math. Going into this game, I had done the math. A lot of different projection sites had them with about a 60 to 70% chance to make the playoffs going into that Vancouver game. 538.com has that all the way down to 43% now after that loss. Still not out of the question, but 2 tough, important games coming up this Sunday against Sporting KC, one of the best teams in the league, and then what really could determine their fate the following Sunday against the LA Galaxy, a team that's above them in the standings, still a chance to catch up to them, but it's not going to be easy by any stretch. Those are going to be 2 very difficult games, teams with stuff to play for, you would presume, so that won't be easy. And this match was frustrating, right? They gave up an own goal towards the end of the first half, created by pressure, created by a long ball. And Adrian Heath was pretty critical of his team after the game. Kind of the way they defended on those 2 goals that they gave up. He said after the first one, which is came on a long ball that ended up going in off of defender Michael Boxall. He said 2 disappointing goals. They didn't have to work hard enough for the goals. That was Heath's first quote on that. He said Boxall, as soon as he came in after halftime, said, "Hey, that goal's on me." You can't get done with a long straight ball like that. He said it's not like the guy has made a clever run or anything. He just chased the long ball through the middle. You can't get beat on a 70-yard straight ball, so that was poor form. That was poor from our point of view. Now, the second goal, they just kind of, they almost equalized. They get one off the post, and that was a theme on Wednesday night's game. And then Vancouver comes right back down and scores. And again, Heath calls that goal poorly defended. The Loons kind of let them get a little too comfortable, a little too close in there, and all of a sudden it's 2-0. And 2-0 in the the 60th, 70th minute. It's going to be hard to come back from. They do draw one back very late, but can't get the equalizer. The stats tell you that the Loons didn't play all that poorly. They had 58% of the possession. 20 shots, 5 of them on target. Vancouver had just 9 shots, 2 of them on target. But, at the end of the day, the scoreboard is what matters. And just watching some of that game, it just seemed like there was a real creativity in the Loons game that's been lacking and was continued to be lacking. They don't make it hard enough for teams to defend them, in my point of view. They're a little bit too stagnant on offense. They're not creative enough. Manuel Reynoso's tremendous. They've got some skill. I just don't know if they're maximizing their skill right now, and it didn't seem like they were in that game. And now they're behind the 8 ball. To use a cliche, they are. They're gonna be right there at the end, but they're gonna have to win some games that maybe are toss-ups at the very least, just to get into the playoffs. And who knows what happens from there. So, on the verge of a disappointing season. Jerry Zgoda the other day on the show said it would be a big disappointment if they don't make the playoffs. And right now, they are on the outside looking in. Let's finish with the cooler. Wild at Kraken Thursday night, their first game in Seattle since that franchise was awarded a expansion team. Should be pretty cool. I might even ask Sarah McClellan, our beat writer, to do one of those voicemails from that game as well, just because it's got such an interesting matchup. I just want to know what the atmosphere there was like. Things like that. So. Wild obviously off to a great start this year, 5-1 so far on the season. Looking like they're going to be in contention for a playoff spot, all the way through. The Kraken, not off to a great start, 2-4-1. As you might expect for an expansion franchise. They play over in the Pacific, of course. So we'll see what the game itself looks like. But right now. The Wild, like I said, 5-1, plenty to play for in this game. And I'm just kind of looking forward to what this looks like, even just if it's on TV right now, what it looks like to see hockey in Seattle. And I should have a lot more of that on Friday's show as well, along with Mark Craig for his weekly NFL Picks segment. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Delivery today. I'm Michael Rand. Hope you liked the show. We'll be back at it on Friday.